right, we're going to go ahead and get this started. Welcome, everybody, to our Touchdown Club meeting today. Got a fun meeting. Get a chance to meet a new coach here in the state, one that we can, based on the great work of Terry Mahajer, can be guaranteed that he will be here next year, for sure. After 5 different faces here representing Arkansas State, all in a good way. We've got some special guests to introduce too, and Coach got here a little late, so he's finishing up his interview with the Buzz. Now Popeye back there is having to fill in. He's substituting today for Matt Johnson. So it's like coaches talk about. The second team's got to step up. So we're counting on you, Popeye. No pressure or anything. Last week, if you were here, we had Gary Underwood could not be here to say the prayer, and we had Chris Kane from Channel 7. So this week we go back from young to old, and we invite Gary to come back up here in a loving way. Gary Underwood, lead us in a word of prayer, please.
The last few weeks I've been talking about the offerings being up in Mississippi. Well, at least in northern Mississippi, they were down yesterday, but beer sales are through the roof in Louisiana. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the day and the opportunity to gather together. We ask you to use us today in your service. Thank you for the food and those that prepared it and those that served it. Lord, we just ask you to use us today to do the best we can with everyone that we meet. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Gary. I will have to tell you, I am extremely frustrated with my eyesight today. Is that not big enough to see even without glasses? Come on. And I still can't see it. Governor, I've just gone right down the tubes in the last 5 years here at the Touchdown Club. It's embarrassing. I don't know how many of you were here last week, but if you missed it, I thought Dari Noka was outstanding, and I think he was really impressed with the reception. Yeah, let's give him a round of applause. And hopefully most of you have had a chance to see him now. If you've not seen him on the SEC Network, he's really, really good. And what a class act he is. Really glad to have him. How are we on our sound back there in the back? Can everybody hear? Are we all good? By the way, next Monday, Rocket Ismail, who, if you don't remember Rocket, played for Notre Dame, was an All-American under Lou Holtz, won the national championship, goes to the Cowboys and is a receiver there. The fastest man in college football at the time ran a 10-200 meters. And my understanding is he's an electric speaker. I mean, he is really a polished, motivational type. So I think we're really going to be in for a treat next week. So make sure and bring a friend to that, Rocket Ismail. Also, don't forget, continue to get your tickets for the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame induction. Eddie Sutton, Sidney Moncrief, Lloyd Phillips, Leotis Harris, Lance Allworth. There's many more than that. But if you haven't got your tickets, please go ahead and get them so we can sell as many of those beforehand and work on the crowd there. Also, know that if you're not here today, if you want to text somebody, they can watch this meeting online live at lrtouchdown.com. Also, the ballots have been sent out for the National College Football Hall of Fame voting. So if you're not a member, if you're a member of the Touchdown Club, all it takes is $25 extra, and you can vote for 2 Arkansas connections, Brandon Burlsworth or Danny Ford, or as you call him, the what? The scientific rocket coach that we had here a few years back. And so I encourage you to do that. We'd love to have the biggest membership as possible. Come on up, Coach, have a seat. So and voting goes on now for probably the next 2 to 3 weeks. So just because you're not a member yet, if you have any questions, you can talk to Debbie or go online and you can find that out. Do want to thank our great sponsors very quickly. Twin City Limousine, thank you very much for the service you provide. Cranford Johnson Robertson Woods, Richard McEwen, thank you for all the help with the Cliff Harris production you're doing right now. Little Rock Convention and Visitor Bureau, we are proud to be called the Little Rock Touchdown Club and to be one of the best in the country. Thank you, David Russell and Gretchen Hall, for your support. 1037 The Buzz, thank you, Steve Johnson, and Justin and Pat, and all the gang at The Buzz. I know Tommy's here. Always great to have Tommy and Roger here supporting what we do with the Touchdown Club. Epic Health, glad to have them back again this year. I know that Dr. Tim Langford is here, and, of course, they are combined now, Arkansas Urology and Epic. Guys, if you haven't got your free screening, go by and take advantage of that. Thank you to Mike Whitfield for their support and Scott Davis. Also, Wendy's, Nan Trammell, thank you so much for Wendy's for supporting our 2 great awards, the Dan Hampton Award and Willie Rofe Award. Thank you, Wendy's. Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, Judy Henry, and her staff, sports law staff. Coach, I don't know if you know, you're new to this area, but Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings is a law firm over 100 years old, and Judy Henry is only one of 7 females licensed by the NFL to represent and sign athletes. So she's an outstanding, and her staff and the attorneys there that work with the athletes are outstanding, and great to have them as a sponsor of the Cliff Harris Award as well. Also, Crane Automotive, thank you to Larry Crane for your support. Drew Dees and the gang, thank you so much. All the folks from Crane, just great to have you guys involved again, and couldn't do it without you. And, of course, we couldn't do it without our Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Wally Hall in the back. Thank you, Wally, for your support. We'll have our Arkansas Democrat-Gazette Player of the Week, and wait till you hear the stats on this guy. It was similar to last week. The numbers don't look good on the front end when I say them, but then on the backside, you'll see you'll be impressed. But thank you to Wally and Tabitha Cunningham for their support. And finally, Simmons Bank. Now, Simmons Bank is our presenting sponsor, and we have a lot of Simmons Bank folks who are ASU grads. And so just so happens, George Macris couldn't be here and Adam Mitchell, but our two representatives from Simmons, they both graduates of ASU, Craig Hunt and Barry Ledbetter. And there's more ASU grads out here representing Simmons. So, y'all, this would not be as great a year if it weren't for the financial support of Simmons. So we thank you and Simmons from the bottom of our heart for your support. Let's give a round of applause for all of our great sponsors. As I mentioned earlier, Popeye's usually driving the limo, but he's working the camera back there. Thank you, Popeye. Dwayne Duncan, for all your great photography work. Thank you. I think R.J. Hawk is in Texas doing social media through our live stream. If you want to tweet out anything today, it's LR Touchdown Club. That's at LR Touchdown Club or hashtag LRTDC. You want to thank Brent and Beth from the embassy for their hard work. And our amazing check-in ladies are outstanding. They do a great job every week. And Debbie Wyman, our executive director, has been outstanding. Let's give them a round of applause if we can. Let's go ahead and introduce our Arkansas Democrat-Gazette High School Player of the Week. He is senior quarterback Heath Land from the North Little Rock Wildcats. Now, 2 Fridays ago, he only completed 13 of 15 passes for 280 yards and 5 touchdowns in North Little Rock's 70-0 win over Searcy. All 5 touchdowns were in the first half. And then I asked, well, what did you guys do this past Friday? They beat Marion 70-6. So they've had back-to-back 70-point games. They are one of the top teams in the state, and I'm sure we'll be vying for the state championship. Interesting thing about Heath, he's got a twin who's an all-state in soccer, a younger twin. He's got an older brother who's all-state in soccer, and he's an all-state quarterback, 3-year starter. And his dad told me, which his dad should know, he is the 4th all-time in the history of Arkansas quarterback in pass completion ratings with a 64.3 completion rate. So let's give a touchdown club welcome to Heath Land, our Player of the Week. I know Coach Anderson can appreciate those kind of numbers. Those are the kind of numbers you like to hear, isn't it, Coach, for sure. I tell you what we'll do. We'll go ahead and we'll let Rex do the weekend recap, and then we'll introduce our special guest, and then let Coach Anderson come up and share with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Nelson, everybody.
Thanks, David, and good afternoon, everybody. I do understand, you know, we're getting close to Election Day, so you like those breaking numbers. David, I do understand Danny Ford does already have 10 votes for the College Football Hall of Fame, all cast by cattle on his ranch back in South Carolina, I'm told. You know, I should be nice to Coach Ford. He was a good old boy. It's just he never bothered to learn anybody's name when he was here in Arkansas. And if those of you of a certain age that remember the old Danny Ford show, that included his own players, remember? Good hit by number 22. Look at that run by number 16. Never learned a name. I think he remembers being here. But anyway, yeah, and a great job by Derry Noka last week. For those of you who are here, you know I'm the unofficial record keeper for the Little Rock Touchdown Club. And if you were here, you do realize that Dari set the record for saying the word booger the most times of any speaker in the history of the Little Rock Touchdown Club. So, Coach, you're not allowed to say the word booger once today. We've reached our capacity for the year. I will let Coach handle the Tuesday night game at Lafayette and preview his upcoming games. So let's run through the other games from a Razorback standpoint. Thank goodness for non-conference games. How about it? Arkansas evens its record at 4-4, 45-17 over UAB. Jonathan Williams rushes for 153 yards, scoring a touchdown on the ground, catching a touchdown pass. Arkansas outgains UAB 484 to 195, and it was a day for us big fat guys. Big fat guys like it when they throw touchdown passes, right? Let's hear it. Hogs are now 7-1 against non-conference opponents in the Brett Bielema era. Williams had 109, by the way, of his yards in the first half alone, as Arkansas led 35-0 at halftime. Alex Collins also finishes that game with 82 yards rushing, now on to Stark Vegas in number 1 Mississippi State. That still feels strange saying number 1 Mississippi State. Sign of the apocalypse. Ole Miss, undefeated no more. Usually it's Les Miles time management we're talking about when it comes to games in Tiger Stadium, and I know that I'm talking about a former ASU coach, but some would claim there was a brain freeze down the stretch on Saturday night at Tiger Stadium, if you'll pardon the pun. 10-7, LSU. LSU had 264 yards rushing against a team that came in averaging just 97.1 given up on the ground per game. And it could have been worse. LSU had 4 turnovers. They missed a short field goal. Rebels came in averaging 35.4 points per game, but they really did seem rattled by that loud crowd of 102,321, 101,134 of whom were officially intoxicated, according to school records. LSU was playing less than 24 hours, by the way, after Coach Les Miles' 91-year-old mother had died, but he was there and coaching, and congratulations to the Tigers on their upset victory. Now, number 1 Mississippi State gets it done, but they had to work for it, didn't they? 45-31 over Kentucky in Lexington. That game, in fact, was in doubt until a guy named Christian Holmes returned a short kickoff, 61 yards for a touchdown with 2:22 remaining. Dak Prescott ran for 2 touchdowns in that game. He passed for another. He had 216 yards passing. He had 88 yards rushing. It was Mississippi State's 10th consecutive victory, and it was their 6th consecutive win over Kentucky. And Auburn also barely survived a gambling South Carolina squad, 42-35. I tell you, Steve Spurrier was rolling those dice on Saturday night. At one point in that game, the Gamecocks had converted 5 consecutive 4th down tries. Nick Marshall had 139 yards passing, 89 yards rushing for the Tigers. Auburn had 551 yards with 395 coming on the ground. South Carolina had 535 yards with 416 coming through the air. So more than 1,000 yards of offense in what was a very entertaining game. And Alabama knocks off Tennessee 34-20 in the Kiffin Bowl. Another big crowd, 102,455 looking on in Knoxville. Amari Cooper, 9 passes, scoring 2 TDs, and set an Alabama school record with 224 yards receiving. It was the Crimson Tide's 8th consecutive victory in the series against Tennessee. Missouri goes to 6-2 overall, 3-1 in conference, 24-14 over Vanderbilt, which falls to 2-6 and 0-5. That game was in Columbia. Now, the 2 previous games, Missouri had no offense. They had combined for only 266 yards of offense. They got well a little bit against Vanderbilt with 385 yards of offense in that one. Into the other state teams, there is only one undefeated college football team left in the state of Arkansas. And it happens to be the team I get to see every week, Ouachita. That's because Harding upset number 4 Henderson 28-24 in the Reddy's homecoming game at Arkadelphia. Henderson, you'll remember, had won 30 consecutive regular season games. That was the longest such streak in NCAA Division II. Trailing 24-21, Harding recovered a fumbled pass with 4:36 remaining, Then the Bisons covered that distance in 10 plays. Winning touchdown comes with just 17 seconds left. A 3-yard reverse by an NFL prospect named Donatella Luckett. He is the real deal. You may see him play on Sundays. Harding, with its ball control offense, get this, led the number 4 team in the country in time of possession, 43-58 to 16:02 in that game. Henderson was held to 115 total yards in the second half, and the Bisons finished with a 379 to 356 total yardage advantage. Meanwhile, just on the other side of Highway 67, Ouachita overcame Arkansas Tech 14-9. Senior Kyle Frazier, the transfer from Auburn, passed for 173 yards, ran for 41 yards. Frazier accounting for 215 of Ouachita's 300 yards of offense. UAM goes on the road. They beat Southern Nazarene over in Bethany, Oklahoma. That's the first conference road win for UAM since the Great American Conference was formed back in 2011. Hunter Leppert passes for 323 yards for the Boll Weevils. So 3 weeks to go in the Great American Conference, and you have Ouachita at 7-0, Harding at 6-1, Henderson at 6-1, SAU at 4-3, Tech at 3-4, and UAM at 2-5. So it's going to be a great stretch run. And a good night for the Bears of UCA. They're 5-4 overall, but more importantly, they're 4-1 in the Southland Conference, following a 58-35 victory in Conway over Northwestern State out of Natchitoches, Louisiana. Bears had 306 yards rushing in that game. Willie Matthews got 114 of those. Ryan Howard, 13 of 16 passing, 150 yards, 1 TD. Bears only had to throw 3 passes in the second half. They were just dominant on the ground. So the Southland Conference race, also interesting. Get this, you now have 5 one-loss teams bunched at the top of the conference. UCA and Southeastern Louisiana are 4-1. Stephen F. Austin, where Clint Conk is now, McNeese State, and Sam Houston State are all 3-1. So that's also going to be fun, both the Great American Conference and the Southland Conference down the stretch. And hats off to the Golden Lions of UAPB. They get their first SWAC victory of the season. They block a 37-yard field goal attempt. In the final seconds, they beat Texas Southern down in Houston 38-37. They had gone ahead with just 2:15 left on a 69-yard touchdown pass from Ben Anderson to Willie Young. Golden Lions are now 2-5 overall, 1-4 in the conference. And in Division III football, Hendricks still having a great season. They're now 5-2, 38-28 over Austin College. Dayton Wynn rushes for 190 yards. Seth Peters, 23 of 34 passing, 231 yards, and 2 TDs for the Warriors. All right, this week, some great games. Auburn at Ole Miss. How many of you like Auburn to go into Oxford and give Ole Miss its second consecutive defeat of the season? Any Auburn folks? Pretty good. How many of you like Ole Miss? That's pretty evenly spread. I think more Auburn, David. All right, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Jacksonville, Florida. Florida versus Georgia. Muschamp's struggling right now. How many of you like Florida to knock off Georgia, to upset them? Anybody? Feel like an auctioneer. Anyone? Going once, going twice? All right. Kentucky at Missouri. Kentucky's playing pretty good. Missouri struggled some. Anybody like Kentucky to go into Columbia and win? A handful on that one. We've also got Tennessee at South Carolina, Louisiana Monroe at Texas A&M, Old Dominion at Vanderbilt, Arkansas at Mississippi State, Stark Vegas, Saturday night. Now vote with your head, not with your heart. How many of you like Arkansas to knock off the number 1 team in the country? There we go. If that happens, we'll have you stand next week. If it doesn't happen, you can pretend you didn't raise your hand. Games in the state, Mississippi Valley State at UAPB, Southern Arkansas at Ouachita, UAM at Henderson, Southeastern Oklahoma at Harding, East Central Oklahoma at Arkansas Tech. Get out and see a college football game, Governor. It's the only place you can be for 3 hours, think about this, and not have to see a single political ad. That's reason alone to go. Pine Bluff, Searcy, Russellville, 2 games in Arkadelphia. Get out and see a game Saturday. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Rex. Appreciate that. Real quickly, I failed to do this. I want to recognize Bart and Madeline Land. the parents of Heathland. Let's give them a round of applause for being here today. The outstanding coach who's done an amazing job with North Little Rock, Brad Boulding. Let's welcome Brad Boulding, please. And you gotta recognize Grandma. That's Grandma Peggy. Let's give her a round of applause. Grandma Peggy, thanks for being here. Now let's recognize our special guest from Jonesboro. First, the president of Arkansas State. Please welcome Chuck Welch. Chuck, please stand. Athletic director from Arkansas State, Terry Mahajer. Terry, great to have you here today. Vice President for Strategic Communications and Economic Development, Jeff Hankins. Let's give Jeff a round of applause. And the Assistant Athletic Director for Media Relations, a guy I've worked with for many years, Jerry Scott. Let's give Jerry a round of applause, everybody. Last but not least, he is probably Arkansas State's #1 fan. You know, I got to thinking, Rex, Governor, if I'm not mistaken, since you've been in office, you have seen 10 coaches between Arkansas and Arkansas State come and go. 10. 5 at Arkansas. That's amazing. And I think y'all, and I've had a chance, you know, obviously been around Mike Huckabee and Clinton and the late Governor White. I don't think there's ever been a more effective and efficient governor in the history of our state, and I think we need to give him his last official Touchdown Club welcome as the official governor here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Beebe. Let's give him a Touchdown Club welcome. Yeah, he's seen them come and go. You know, at least at Arkansas State, they've gone for good things. You know, I think the last picture I saw you sitting up here at the head table was next to Bobby Petrino. We know how that worked out. So, but it's great to have you here today as a great supporter of Arkansas State. We're also proud, Coach, that Freddie Knighton, one of our favorite players from Pulaski Academy, right here in Little Rock, is your outstanding quarterback. We're a big fan and have honored Freddie here at this club before when he was in high school. I think it's great, y'all, that we have 2 coaches in our state that in 1 year can run a feigning goat and a fat boy pass all in the same year and have a little fun in football. I love that. I will do the formal introduction of Coach Anderson since Jim Rasco is not here, and I'll be brief. But I just want to let you know as I read this, I asked Coach, what year did you get married? And he said about 1992. So I'm going to tell you, you got the most loving wife in the world because she's lived out of a suitcase for the last 15, 20 years. Did you know that Blake Anderson was born where? Jonesboro, Arkansas. Moved to Hubbard, Texas at an early age. I did not realize began his playing career as a quarterback and wide receiver at Baylor University under Grant Taft. You know, I'm older than you. It hurts for me to say that, but I was already graduated. We might have played against one another. Hurt his ACL. Transfers to Sam Houston State, where he played as a wide receiver from 1989 to 1991. He obtained a degree in kinesiology from Sam Houston State in 1992 and his master's degree in sports administration from Eastern New Mexico University in 1994. And that's where you began your coaching career, Eastern New Mexico. That's where he meets his wife, right? Sam Houston. She followed you to Eastern, right? Followed you to Eastern for there. There as a graduate assistant in 92. Wide receivers in 93. In 94, he coaches wide receivers at Howard Payne University. In 95, he moves on to Trinity Valley as an assistant. He was offensive coordinator there in 1997 when they won the Junior College National Championship. Then in 1999, he goes to New Mexico as running backs coach. During the 2001 season, he took the wide receivers coaching position. 2002, he goes to Middle Tennessee State under Coach Andy McCullum. And, Coach, that's where you sort of, I think, really started blossoming as an offensive mind. Of course, he replaced Larry Fedora, who went to Florida. And, of course, as I mentioned, all kind of records were set there while you were there in Middle Tennessee. But this was the thing I didn't know about you, Coach, that you got out of coaching for 2 years, right? For 2 years, just got out of coaching. Decides to, and maybe you can share what that was about, gets back 2007 with the Raging Cajuns and really lit up their offense from a rushing perspective. 2008, he goes to Southern Miss under Larry Fedora, leads them to a 12-win season. I remember that you beat Houston, who was undefeated at the time. And of course, Fedora leaves Southern Miss for North Carolina. Coach Anderson goes with him. They light it up. And then, of course, December 19th, 2013, became Arkansas State's fifth head coach in 5 years. And I'm excited. I think you're a great hire. From my exposure to you, you're a high-energy guy. You love offense. I love the fact that you're willing to try trick plays. I love that. And at Arkansas State, I think you've got a winner. And it's one thing to be a great coach. I think you're also a great communicator as well. I think the state of Arkansas is lucky to have you. And we always do this here at Little Rock Touchdown Club. Let's give a warm first year of many year welcome to Blake Anderson, everybody.
Welcome, Coach. Oh, good to have you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. I actually have some notes here, so I might actually follow a few of them as we go. You kind of hit everything. I don't know. I ought to just open it up for question and answers at this point, to be honest with you. No, it's good. It's great to be here. And I looked when they asked me to speak, and I got the opportunity to come. I talked to Jerry. I said, I grew up in Texas, and I haven't been around here, and so have not really seen who's spoken here in the past. I said, man, just shoot me a list of previous speakers at the Little Rock Touchdown Club. And the more I read, the more in awe I was at the names. I mean, when you start, when you're a first-year head coach and the names read Bobby Bowden and Tom Osborne and Snellenberger and you just go on, Lou Holtz and Gene Stallings, and I could just go on, Johnny Majors. For me, it was just a sense of awe and appreciation that you guys are willing to have me come speak. And obviously it was a down week, so you had to have me come down from Jonesboro. But I consider those people legends. I consider them in the sport. They've done great things. I consider them heroes for me as a young coach. You mentioned Grant Taft, who I started my playing career under at Baylor University back in 1987. I was lucky enough to get recruited by him. One of the best things or the highest moments of my freshman year was when he actually spoke to me by name. You mentioned that earlier. Now, it wasn't for anything spectacular. It was, hey, Blake, go cover, go over there on scout team and let these guys run you over for a couple plays. But the fact that I remember going back in the locker room and the guy said, hey, he called you Blake. Normally it was, hey, bud, or hey, I don't know, whatever. Hey, whatever was close. But when he called me by my first name, that was a pretty big deal. Mike Singletary has spoken here. I remember growing up in Hubbard, Texas, going and watching games and watching Mike Singletary play. It was, some of my fondest memories are going to Baylor home games, which is only about 30 miles from the big city of Hubbard, Texas, and watching him play and getting a chance to get an autograph or a sweatband or whatever, from Mike Singletary was a huge deal. And those of the folks in the room that truly know who Larry Lacewell is, and although Larry lived there in Jonesboro, I mean, when you start talking about heroes and legends, Larry's one of those guys that I remember more and more, because when I see him in town, he reminds me that he is the winningest coach in Arkansas State history, and he is the best coach in Arkansas State history. And so if I ever forget, he makes sure and reminds me of it. But so there's been a bunch of great people that have been here. This is a great tradition. It's an honor to be here. And so I appreciate you taking time and let me tell you a little bit who I am and kind of what's going on, where we're at. I really do not consider myself even close in any way, shape, or form to that list of folks. Now, I aspire to be there and would hope that someday some guy gets up here and has a chance to speak and says, I remember Blake Anderson. I remember meeting him. I remember playing for him, coaching, whatever. I'd love to be that guy, but I firmly understand I'm not there now, and I know what's ahead of me, and I know what the task is at hand. What I am is a 45. Somebody asked me, I think when I was doing radio, no, I'm not 35. I wish I was. I'm a 45-year-old gym rat from Hubbard, Texas. And I typically tell people I'm from Waco. The only reason that is because Hubbard's so small, nobody knows where Hubbard's at. It's 1,250 some odd people. I think the population sign has you can change it like a baseball score, because somebody's born or somebody passes away, they change it on a daily basis. It is the speed trap between Waco, Texas, and Corsicana on Highway 31. 3 coaches that recruited me all got tickets when they were recruiting me. My cousin was the mayor, and so it was my job. Now my aunt is the mayor of Hubbard, Texas. And so so there's some great things about growing up in that environment. I was a gym rat. My mom was a teacher, and so I followed every coach around that I could. when she was grading papers, I was bothering the football or basketball or whatever coach was in season. And so I learned a lot about the sport and fell in love with it. It's all I've ever really wanted to do. Now, I did not get the luxury of a last name as it pertains to football. I love my dad to death. My mom and dad are still married, still live in Hubbard, Texas. I have to give him my report every Sunday. I get his good, his bad of what I did. My mother chimes in as well on the other phone, talking over him, telling him what he's missing. But my dad is a life insurance agent, still is to this day. Does a great job, has a business back home. But I told him years ago, kind of early in coaching, I said, Dad, I love you very much. I wouldn't trade you for anything in the world. I wouldn't have bothered me if your last name would have been Spurrier, Holtz, or Bowden, or anything like that. I mean, that would have helped me a little bit in this coaching profession, but wouldn't trade them for the world. And they're obviously my biggest fans and big supporters. But, I did. I grew up as a gym rat in Hubbard, Texas, and it's just kind of been football ever since. And, I've done this 22 years. My wife has bounced around all over. He told you some of the stops. What he didn't tell you was some things about those stops that have kind of made all this worthwhile. My first job 22 years ago, 22 seasons ago, was in eastern New Mexico State. Now, I'm just curious if anybody in the room has ever been to Portales, New Mexico. You have. So, kind of the way to describe it is it's not at the edge of the earth, but you can see the edge from there. It is awful. It is just god awful to start your college career at. There's no other way around it. But I was so excited to get the job. Now, I was engaged at the time. My wife, her dad was an old high school football coach, coached at John Tyler High School and Conroe High School, both great football programs in Texas. So she kind of knew what she was getting in for. But she had not grown up in Hubbard, number one. She'd grown up in Conroe, and she had never seen anything quite like Portales, New Mexico. Now, if you've ever seen the Beverly Hillbillies, you've ever seen it. All right, picture the Hubbard City Hillbillies. My wife in my car, and it's packed to the hilt. My dad in his truck, packed to the hilt, and a horse trailer behind it full of everything that we could stuff in it. All right, we pick up from Huntsville, Texas. We drive 17 hours nonstop, basically. We pull into Portales, New Mexico. We know the address of the place that we're going to rent because the head coach that's there has already found it for us. We've sight unseen. Wives, you already know right now I'm messing up. All right, we pull in after 17 hours. We stop at the house, and when we stop, the futon chair that's on the side of the horse trailer that's tied rolls a block and a half to the other end. That's how we started my college coaching career in Portales, New Mexico. We proceeded to go inside the place and realize that not one thing worked. No, the refrigerator did not work, the stove did not work, the air conditioner didn't work, and her first thing is, I'm not staying here. So that's kind of how things started 22 years ago. We did make our way through Howard Payne and Brownwood, Texas, where you get a lot of dust and a lot of wind and a lot of Mexican food, if you like it, which we do. We spent 5 years in junior college ball in Trinity Valley in Athens, Texas. And, just things that you kind of forget along the way. We ran the dorms there. We lived in the apartments with the players. So we were dorm parents to a bunch of kids that were sent to junior college for a reason, typically because they didn't like school and they'd found a way to get in trouble somewhere along the way. And so we were dorm parents. Had my first of 3 kids there. I've got 3, Colton, Callie, and Kaysen. Colton is 20, playing football at Navarro College in Texas. Callie is a sophomore, cheerleader at Jonesboro High School. And Kaysen, the youngest one, is a 7th grade quarterback / wideout / punter at MacArthur Middle School. But we had Colton there, and I remember early we lost him one time, which we do from time to time, just in case you are wondering. We tend to lose our kids. We've lost them. We've had the garbage man at the University of New Mexico bring my daughter back home, which was pretty good. And at Trinity Valley, we lost him in the middle of the day one time for a couple hours. And so we get all the football players together, and we start looking. It's not a very big campus. We start looking around everywhere. We've been looking for a while. I mean, we're nervous. We're first-time parents. We're scared to death. I'm mad at her. She's mad at me. It's her fault. I think it's her fault. She thinks it's my fault. And so literally we're at the point where we're going to get the police involved. We're going to figure it out. And around the corner comes a 7-foot center from Nigeria that plays on our basketball team who has had Colton on his shoulders for the last hour and a half, just walking around campus. He just enjoying family. Those are things that rib night at the cafeteria was the best part of the month. Once a month, our cafeteria, we had a guy that cooked for us that once a month he would have rib night, and we looked forward to rib night once a month at Trinity Valley Community College. So those are some things that just got us going. My first Division I coaching job, thanks to Rocky Long, was the running back's job at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. So we made that move, and that was a great time for us. And I did really kind of start my offensive mindset and really get involved in what we do now offensively is when I left New Mexico and went to be a co-coordinator at Middle Tennessee State. And, I saw coming along college football, I saw it starting to change offensively. We had been pro style, we'd been option, we'd been I, we'd done all those things for years, and won games doing it. And we won a national championship in junior college running inside zone and lead draw every snap and throwing play action and running some option. But I saw spread offense starting to do some things, and it looked, man, I just gravitated towards it. I love the speed. I love the tempo of it. I love the fact that the ball was spread all over the place. And so when I got the opportunity to go to Middle Tennessee and be a co-coordinator and learn this system from inside out, I jumped at the chance. And really over the last 14 years, what we've been doing is just perfecting it and tweaking it and blending it and molding it. We've taken Rich Rodriguez' run game and Mike Leach's pass game and great minds that have come through. Dana Holgers is doing it, and Larry Fedora was doing it as well, and Cliff's doing it. And you see at Oklahoma State with Gunny and his crew, it's just morphed and spread, and there's spread football and fun, exciting football all across the country. And we've got our own brand of it right there. And it took, the last 12, 13, 14 years to just continually change and mold with football. And now we've got what's a really, really fun and exciting brand of football. But all that kind of started, during that time. And those last few stops were Southern Miss in North Carolina for me. 4 years there at Southern Miss with Larry Fedora. He was my head coach, and he had run this offense at some good places. And he cut me loose and said, get after it. And gave me the opportunity to make some mistakes, which I made plenty of, still making some from week to week. But we broke 80 school records in a 6-year period. We were lucky enough to win a conference championship at Southern Miss, one of the highest highs I've had in the sport, also followed by one of the lowest lows when I wasn't able to get the head coaching job. And they told me I was going to have to leave town, which I did. Went to Chapel Hill, North Carolina with Larry for 2 years, where we won the Coastal Division the first year and broke every school record there offensively and got to coach some really good kids. It was the lowest low at the time, but it was one of the biggest blessings as well. It wasn't the job I needed. It wasn't where I was supposed to be. It's not where God wanted me to be. And so the 2 years at Carolina was great for me. I learned more how to do what I'm doing now and be better at it. And I would have missed some great moments. Gio Bernard punt return with 30 seconds left on the clock to beat North Carolina State there in Chapel Hill, which is a once-in-a-lifetime deal, to win the Coastal Division and to see guys, really grasp and score 42 points a game in the ACC. A lot of things I would have missed had I stayed at Southern Miss. And ultimately what I'd missed was being the head coach at Arkansas State right here, right now, today in 2014 at the best time you could possibly be here in the history of football at Arkansas State. So God knew what he was doing. He took us through all those places. And yes, my wife followed me for 22 years. She's still with me. She, thank goodness. And the kids are as well. And we've seen a lot of great things. But, big highs, some lows along the way. But again, all of it's led me really home. And I can say home in two ways. Obviously, I was born in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Who would have thought that I would have come back full circle? Now, I only lived there about 6 months. People ask me all the time. I've had reporters ask me, what do you remember? I don't remember a thing. I was 6 months when I left. That was really the time when my dad said, it's time to go settle down and stay one place. And they've been in Hubbard, Texas ever since. But it just seemed to me a God thing that he brought me back to Jonesboro to start my career and allow me to be at a place that I can really consider home. It got me back in an area in the country that's really important to me in the South, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, all the areas that we have to recruit are where I've come to know people over the last 22 years. So it's been a great fit in that sense. It's gotten my family to where my mom and dad can drive to games. I can see my son. I can see my kids. And so all those things have been just really a blessing. But it really is, to me, the best time for Arkansas State football in the history. It's the 100th year, so it's a centennial season. We're coming off 3 straight conference championships in a row. I mean, there's nobody in the country doing that in any level, in any place. And so we're fortunate. We're working on number 4. We took a setback last week against Lafayette, but we're going to keep fighting. And who knows what happens if we continue to do what we're supposed to each week. 8 years in a row, we've had a drafted player, which is 3rd among all BCS, non-AQ teams in the country. That's something that we've proven we can get guys to go to the next level. We got 11 or 12 guys playing on NFL rosters right now, doing a great job at the next level. We're graduating players at a higher rate than ever before. The academic history has been great. 10 out of the last 11 years, we've won the Sun Belt Award for the highest academics in the league. But also, if you look, our GPA, athletic GPA, is the highest it's ever been in school. So a lot of great things happening. And we have, right now, fundraising and expansion and building is at one of the highest it's ever been. And that's, obviously that's Terry Mahajer and his crew or hustle beyond anything I've ever seen. We've got great fans and Governor Beebe and a supporter. We've got administration, Chuck Welch and Tim Hudson, that just continually push beyond to be better. Some of you guys have not been there, so honestly what I'd like you to do is kind of see what is going on. We've got a video I'd like you to watch real quick and kind of give you an idea what we are doing there, and I'll kind of finish up as we go. If y'all would cue that, and we'll give you an idea what we got going.
Another exciting day at Arkansas State, right? Yeah, right? Yeah? Yeah, guess what? It's not the last. I can tell you that. It's not the last, We're excited to announce the Centennial Expansion today, and that's what we're calling this, Centennial Expansion. The reason why we're calling it Centennial Expansion is, number one, it's 100 year of football. Number two, Centennial Bank Stadium.
It's exciting. And you could see it going up. When they started putting the vertical structures up with the indoor, you could see people's eyes start perking up. We'd seen dirt move for months, and when that started actually going up, and you could see how just big the space it's going to take up and how impressive the structure it's going to be. The renderings of both the new complex and the West Side expansion are as nice as anybody's in the country.
This project allows us to compete from a recruiting standpoint, from a fan standpoint, with our peer group. And we're very excited. And you know what? We also wanted to create a fan experience that's second to none. And we believe once this thing is erected, it is no question it'll be second to none.
This place is literally going to be, unrecognizable for people that they hadn't been back and they hadn't watched it all through. The place has taken, just a tremendous change, and we're gonna get to use that in recruiting. Our kids are gonna get to benefit from it. We're gonna move into brand new facilities. That's a great part. For me to get to be a part of that, you only get to do some of those things one time in your career. It's a great time to be here.
When the Allison family committed a private gift to support, it made it a reality, not just a goal, a reality. But it wasn't until our alumnus, Johnny Allison, and his family took a leadership role by making a personal $5 million commitment to help us build this facility to give us a head start for future facilities.
This has been on my bucket list for a long time, and I wanted to make a meaningful contribution to Arkansas State University. And ASU and I have talked over the years about different things, but I wanted to be sure that the Allison family was in a position to make a major contribution, and that we not only would we make the major contribution, but we'd back up what we say. As you learn that, you know me a little bit, several of you know me, in my bank, Centennial, we do what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it. And not only do we appreciate the relationship with Arkansas State University, we also cherish the relationship with Arkansas State University.
As a result of all the different financial variables that we have looked at, I made a recommendation to our chancellor that this facility will be ready for our home opener against the University of Missouri in the 15th season.
As you can see, there's been a lot of work going on, and Terry and his crew have done a tremendous job. We've got supporters like Centennial and so many others that have stepped up and made it possible. And really, all that just kind of leads us to where do we go from here? I'm here, and I've got a staff of guys and a team, and what's the next step? Our goal is to make every person in this state proud of who we are. Our goal is to make every alumni, every past player proud of who we are. We want to be the best at what we are. Now, we're not in the SEC, and you guys, you rattled off scores and statistics. We know we're not in the SEC. We're not in the Big 12. We don't even need to be. We don't care to be. We want to be the best at what we are. We want to be the best non-AQ program in the country. We're building the facilities to show that we mean it. We're competing on a daily and weekly basis across the country, in and out of our conference to do that. We're putting people out there all across the country with the A-State brand. It is the best time possible to be a part of it. And so our goal is to continually work. I would love to see about 2-3 years down the road, I would love to see us be the non-Power 5 or the Group of 5 representative in the bowl system, right alongside the Razorbacks right down the street in there as well. That would be great for the state of Arkansas. I think it's possible to love both programs. I think it's possible to support both. Some of our biggest supporters there in town are Razorbacks, have grown up and graduated from Fayetteville themselves. What's good for us is good for the state. What's good for them is good for the state. And it's our goal to build a monster program in Jonesboro that makes everybody in the state of Arkansas happy and proud. And so there's a bunch of people right here that we'd love for you to come see. You can see that we're serious about what we're doing. We're building faith, family, and football, and we're doing it in a very fun, exciting way. You mentioned, I was looking the other day, we've run 4 punts this season, 2 of them successful, 2 of them not so much, one of them including a fainting goat, if you paid attention, which had over like 120 million hits on the internet. We have had 2 surprise onsides. One worked, one did not. And I counted up the other day, we've run 21 different trick plays in 7 games. We're 4-3. Our losses coming to Tennessee, Miami, and a tough loss last week against Lafayette. And we've got a 5-game schedule, 3 of those being home games in November. And the thing I'll guarantee and promise the same thing I tell everybody else. If you haven't made the trip to come watch us play, nobody else in the country is running fainting goats. Nobody else is running flea flickers and fake punch and all. There is nothing boring about a game in Jonesboro, Arkansas. There'll be 30,000 people there having a great time. There'll be fast break basketball on grass. And you will always have to stay in your seat and wonder what's going to happen next. And as we continually recruit and build some stability, nobody's going to want to come there to play, including Missouris and the Miamis that are coming down the road. So we're going to make you proud, and we're going to be fun to be involved with. I promise you, we laugh at ourselves a little bit, and we have a good time. Now, I've talked a lot, and I'm sure there's some questions in the audience, and I'd love to answer any questions that you got. Yes, sir. Well, I'm glad I could be helpful. It probably need to be drink. Well, every job I've had has prepared me honestly in one way or the other, whether it was I want to do these things and carry on those traditions and schedules and whether it be discipline or communication or just the other things that I've realized that's just not something that I want to do. I was very fortunate to work for several first-year head coaches. I got with Rocky after his first year, but Larry Fedora was a first-year head coach. So was Andy McCullum, a first-year head coach. Those guys learning their way through. And so, I'm a product of my environment, obviously. And so a lot of what I learned from Rocky in terms of how he dealt with his players, I've carried his aggressive mentality in a lot of areas, both in special teams and defense. I thought he had a great relationship with his guys off the field. He's still doing a great job at San Diego State. You look up every year, and they're better than you think they're supposed to be. Larry had a great 365-day plan. I mean, there was never a point in time when things weren't talked about and detailed out, and we always knew what the end goal was that we were trying to get to. So I've benefited from learning from those guys in all those areas. And so I am a product of good coaches and also some mistakes that we made along the way that we've learned not to make again. And so you're going to see a lot of those guys in me in the decisions that I make.
Coach, sometimes you see an offense, a coach that's offensive-minded, you see a lot of points, and yet the defense doesn't have the identity of the head coach. We saw it a little bit at Arkansas with Bobby Petrino. Talk about your philosophy on defense, and then also from a recruiting standpoint, what's your strategy for recruiting to make a difference at ASU? I mentioned Freddie Knighton being here from Central Arkansas, but maybe your recruiting philosophy, what you got to get, and then your philosophy on defense.
Well, I'm smart enough to know that I don't know defense, number one. I mean, I am. I'm an offensive-minded guy. What I do understand about defense, that it's about attitude, and it's about team morale, and it's about speed, and honestly, being angry when you get to the ball. So what I did was I hired the best defensive coordinator I thought that I could get, that I think is one of the best in the country, in Joe Cawthon. Not a guy that's well known, to be honest with you, but if you go back and you dig through his history, what you're going to find is they're successful everywhere he's been. Won a national championship at Valdosta State when he was there, and so spent some time with him coaching. And what I do on a daily basis to help our defense is I coach effort and attitude every snap. I spend just as much time with the defense as I do with the offense. If you watch practice, you will see me sprinting and chasing guys on and off the field. One thing that's unique about how we practice in terms of how we build an attitude is when a rep is over, guys never walk anywhere. They never jog. They sprint on and off the field. And myself and my strength staff, Matt Shadid and his staff, we physically chase them on and off the field and hold them accountable. And if they don't do it right, we make them do it again. So what I'm going to do in terms of recruiting is we're going to recruit as much team speed as we possibly can. Try to develop guys, take guys that were quarterbacks and running backs in high school, because typically that's where you put your best athletes, move them to play linebacker, defensive end, safety, and become the fastest, meanest defense football team we can. Do the same thing on offense with as much speed as possible, and then try to hire great guys and let them run schemes that work. Now, we've got to start recruiting in Arkansas. We need to do a great job here in the state. I think we've got 5 commitments already in the state. And that's, for us, where we're at this particular year, and the talent pool this season was pretty good. We got all those commitments fairly early. We're going to continue to do that. And then we got to get all through the South. From Dallas, Texas to Atlanta, there's great football being played all the way across. And we've got commitments from every state throughout that area. And so we're going to be aggressive, make early offers. We're going to do camps. We did one right here in Little Rock last year. Had a great turnout, and actually ended up getting a commitment from one of the kids that was at that camp while we were here. So we're going to go out and be aggressive and go out where the players are. We did camps all through the South. We traveled around for about a week and a half, just loaded up on a bus. It smelled awful by the end of the week, by the way. But we saw a lot of great players, and it really has done a tremendous work for our recruiting efforts. Any other questions? Oh, you got
Yeah, I got another. Yeah. Talk about Freddie Knight, and as a defensive player, it's so much pressure when you have a dual threat on offense. Is that something that you'll always look for as a quarterback that's a run pass threat?
Absolutely. When we're at our best offensively, which we're getting better each week, playing better right now than we have at any point during the season, is when we've got a dual threat quarterback. Now, we've done it with a guy that couldn't throw and could only run. We kind of did that at Lafayette. I think we rushed for over 6,000 yards that year, which was a Sun Belt Conference record. I mean, we just did not have the ability to throw a forward pass very well, so we ran the ball well. We've done it with a guy that couldn't run very well, threw it, and we set records throwing the ball. What we want, ideally, is a guy that can do both. The more dynamic he is, the better we're going to become offensively. But it all really comes down to one thing. Can he make decisions, and can he lead? And those are the things that Freddie's given us right now. He's making better decisions each week. His turnovers have gone down. His decision-making has gone up. And he's become more and more dynamic each week as he understands the offense and all the different things he has to do inside that offense each week. I think the other thing that's helping him right now is the other pieces of the puzzle, the wideouts, running backs. Everybody is starting to get more comfortable and playing better, and he's benefited from it. He's had 3 really, really good weeks in a row, and I expect him to have a great second half to the season. We kind of go as Freddie goes. Yep. If all you heard was Trooper Taylor in the jail, you would be a little bit concerned. Governor is referring to a recruiting story that you'll get a kick out of. We got there in January, and so you've only got a few weeks to battle through and recruit. And we found a young man by the name of Daryl Rollins Davis that we think, number one, he's probably the fastest kid on our team right now. He's a freshman, playing a little bit on special teams, returned a couple kicks, had a 50-yarder against Tennessee earlier in the year. He's from Knoxville, and so Trooper and myself and Walt Bell, our offense coordinator, we take on the task of recruiting him. And we're battling down to the end. But we find out that he's got a family member that is important that we go see, and honestly, he is incarcerated at the time in Georgia. And that's part of it. You come across all these backgrounds. Everybody's got different backgrounds, but we want to go make sure that we see the people in the family that are important. We call the governor and say, hey, we need to get in, and it's not easy. He makes a few phone calls, and he gets us in. So Trooper is going to go through, and he's going to sit down and talk. And he goes in. He's got scholarship papers in hand. He's going to show him kind of what we're offering and how this thing's going to go. So he sits down and sits at the window across from this man, and they start talking. And Trooper, if you've ever met Trooper Taylor, if you haven't, Trooper can talk as good as anybody in the country. Trooper and I played together at Baylor, and he hasn't quit talking since, okay? 30 years ago. So he's talking, he's giving the spiel, and he is doing a great job. He's laying it on about 3/4 away, I don't know, about through his spiel, probably about 25 minutes in. This guy says, he kind of knocks on the window and says, "Sir, if there's any way, if I have a son, there is no doubt that he would be playing for you, but I have no idea what you're talking about, and I don't know who you think I am." He said, "Who exactly do you think you're supposed to be talking to?" So he said, "Well, aren't you so-and-so?" He said, "No, that's not me at all." He said, "If I had a son, I promise you could have him." But so he says, "But now listen, if you'll keep me for 15 more minutes, I won't have to go back and mop that cafeteria. So could we just stay here and keep talking for about 15 more minutes so I don't have to go back and do work detail?" So Trooper, I think, just out of courtesy, talked to him for about 10 more minutes and then let him go back, and then they actually found the right person. It went well, and Daryl's at our place and doing great. But there are some unique stories along the recruiting trail. Another pretty good one about red Kool-Aid that happened in Tallahassee. I'll tell you about some other time. Any other questions that you got?
I've got another one. It's what I do for a living, Coach. I'm sorry. I do it 4 hours every morning. You mentioned about being not in the Big Five, the Big Five conferences. Obviously, at UNC, part of the ACC you were. What do you think about the challenges you're talking about trying to build a program, and all of a sudden you hear the NCAA talking about allowing the Big Five to pay their players? Talk about how that's going to be competition-wise as that develops, that issue.
Well, I think it's competition if you allow it to be. We typically recruit at a different level. In a lot of cases, we're recruiting guys that maybe have not developed quite yet. We're recruiting a little bit later in the process. However, we committed guys really early this year, earlier than we ever have. What we're trying to do is focus on the things that we can control at our place. And right now, we're building facilities that are as nice or nicer than anybody's in the country. We outfit them in great gear every day. They're safe. They look good. Heck, we threw red helmets on them for the first time since the 70s the other day. We make sure they're taken care of. We feed them well 24/7. There's nothing that they don't have. Now, do we have above and beyond like some of these places that have unlimited budgets? No. But we're giving them a great education. They're playing for a team that can win football games and get them a degree. And so what it ends up doing is it changes the pool of players a little bit. There's some people that's all they want. That's what they're looking for, and they're going to go those places regardless. And honestly, we're probably not going to beat very many of them in recruiting anyway, unless somebody's looking for what we have to offer. We've got a little bit smaller scale at times. We've got a little bit smaller community. We've got a little bit more of a family and not quite as much of a business. And we've got an environment where they can see themselves grow. So for the people that fit what we do, I don't think it's a factor. But on paper, it's a huge hurdle, and it's something that we all got to deal with. And I don't think any of us will truly know exactly how it affects us all for another few years as we see it affect recruiting, as we see it affect preseason games in terms of what you do out of conference. So we'll just have to adapt and mold and do what we do best, and we'll keep working on that as best we can.
One more follow-up on that.
Goodness gracious.
Some of you may not know this, but you've heard of the Brandon Burlsworth Award that was started 2 or 3 years ago. Well, a young man who won that a few years ago, and you're talking about development of players, is a guy named Austin Davis at Southern Miss. And if you've watched on Sunday the last few weekends, he's the starting quarterback for the St. Louis Rams. Maybe just talk about him and his development and how sort of that theory of what you're talking about, developing guys that may not be the 4 or 5 stars into NFL-type players.
No doubt. One of the luckiest things happened to me in my career was crossing paths with Austin when I took the offense coordinator's job at Southern Miss. Now, the thing people don't truly understand is just, how rare it is that we did. When we got there, Austin was already there on the roster. He was a walk-on. He had come there to play either football or baseball. He could have probably done both if he wanted to. And so we went in, and my first deal was to figure out if we had a quarterback that could run our offense. And so I watched every tape of the high school kids that we had on our roster. Now, there were 4 scholarship players in Austin in the building. Watched all 5 of those on tape and walked into Larry and said, we got a problem. Number 1, we got 4 guys on scholarship, and maybe one of those 4 can run our system. Number 2, the best quarterback in the building is a walk-on. His name's Austin Davis, and he's probably fixing to go play third base for the baseball team if we don't go ahead and put him on scholarship. And I was able to convince Larry to go ahead and sign him in our first February signing class. And all he did was 2 weeks into spring ball is win the starting job over the 3 quarterbacks that stayed, one of them quit midway through spring because we worked way too hard for him to begin with. The other 3 stayed, and he beat them all out and won the job. And by the end of spring ball, he was, without a doubt, our best leader on offense as a freshman, as a redshirt freshman, and our best chance to win games. And all he did over the next 4 years was break every record Brett Favre ever set, lead us to a 12-2 season, beat undefeated Houston in a conference championship game, and then go on and make the roster. Now, here's what's crazy about him. He was an undrafted free agent for St. Louis 3 years ago. He was on the practice squad first year. Last year, they cut him mid-season, brought him back later in the season when they had an injury. This year, they demoted him to 4th string over the summer and signed 2 guys to replace him. And all he's done is do the same exact thing he did at Southern Miss, is outwork everybody in the building. And over the last 4 weeks, he's completed about 70% of his balls in the NFL and is doing everything he can to help salvage a team that's really struggling. He's one of the best things that ever happened to me as a coach. He's a great, close, I call him friend. He's like a son to me. He's part of the family. He will coach for me one day, whether he wants to or not. And when he's done playing, I hope it's a long ways down the road. But he's one of the great things about the sport, one of the things I love about it. Those kind of stories, we get lucky enough to come across them. He's a great witness, a great Christian kid with a beautiful wife and going to have a great family. But he's what's right about the sport of football. He really is. Is that it? No, yes, sir. I'll give you one more. Thank you all so much for having me. It's been an honor to be here. I hope you guys will take time, if you haven't, to come visit us in Jonesboro. There's great things happening there. It's because of great people. We're having a lot of fun. I promise you, it will never be a wasted trip. You'll have a great time, and there's good football ahead. Thank you all so much.
Blake Anderson, everybody. Great job, Coach. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Rocket Ismail next week. Rocket Ismail. Have a great day.